Grandpa stole his first buggy in 1892. I met your grandma pig slopping in 46.
Oh, every Christmas we'd visit my Uncle Fred in prison.
And this is it, America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. I am Fisher, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. And this segment of our show is brought to you by RootsMagic.com. And later on in the show, I'm excited to be talking to Katie Barnes from LegacyTree.com. She's going to talk about epidemics and our ancestors. Maybe you've run across that in some of your research where you find that, oh, the mom and the dad died a week and a half apart and the kids died in between and maybe one person survived. Katie's going to talk about some of those experiences in the rural and urban areas and how that affected some of our lines. That's coming up in about 8 or 9 minutes. Then Jean McGuire is here. She's the librarian for the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. And she's going to be sharing with us the latest on their Catholic records indexing project that's going on. Digitizing, indexing. It's going to cover 10 million names of very early Americans, and maybe some of yours are affected no matter where you are in the country. But right now, let's check in with David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist for the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. How are you, David, and where are you?
I am down in Colonial Williamsburg with my family, and we are exploring the wonderful historical sites down in Virginia.
What a great adventure. I'm glad you took the time to bother with us today.
Well, I'm delighted, and I'm standing on the top of a steeple trying to get the best wireless signal so I can reach out to you right now. Hopefully I don't fall off.
Right. It is Colonial Williamsburg. I imagine the signal's not too good in colonial circumstances.
Exactly. And some of the taverns, I'm sure they provide free Wi-Fi for all of their constituents, but I haven't found a good signal today. So we'll see how we do with this. And if not, I'll get a passenger pigeon and send my report.
There you go. Let's start with our Wheel of Wherever today and see what kind of story we can come up with. Okay, the Wheel of Wherever has landed on Belgium. Do you have something for us today from Belgium?
Well, in fact, I do. In light of the 100th anniversary of World War I, recently the partial remains of an unknown New Zealand soldier were found on the Western Front battlefield in Belgium. How they identified him, Fish, was on the remains of his uniform were the initials NZR, which stood for New Zealand Regiment.
Right.
And this was typically worn by those from Auckland, Canterbury, Otago, Wellington infantry regiments. And 100 years after the fact that this poor soldier died, he will now be given a decent burial at the British Commonwealth War Graves Cemetery in Belgium.
Wow, that's a great story. Imagine that all these years later. Wouldn't that be interesting if they could do some DNA on him and find some living relatives?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So who knows what type of sample they were able to get. Again, it was a partial remains, but 100 years later, and to think that this one is finally getting laid to rest properly. Well, on that same note of being laid to rest, my heart goes out to the family and associates of Terry Punch. Now, Terry Punch is a genealogist and has spent well over 50 years doing research on Canadians. He was one of the experts on maritime genealogy. But Fisher, in America, we have the presidential citations that are given out. In Canada, they are awarded the Order of Canada. And Terry Punch was the only genealogist ever to receive the Order of Canada. I had the honor of lecturing and knowing Terry over a number of years. No one knew Scottish and Irish immigrants into the Maritimes better than Terry Punch. And sadly, when we lose genealogists like this, we're losing a library.
Yep, that's right.
My next story almost has a King Arthur of Camelot spin to it, Fish. So there's a golf course that's located in All Saints in Forum, St. Genevieve, a village in the civil parish of St. Edmundsbury in England. They were dredging a pond at a golf course. Well, you know, you think they're probably finding golf balls or have people that get aggravated and throw their golf club into the pond. So when the bucket went down and dredging up, sticking out from the bucket was a sword.
What?
Just like in King Arthur, when the Lady of the Lake hails forth Excalibur.
Right,
yeah,
right.
It's exactly the King Arthur story. So this sword is not from King Arthur, unfortunately, but it does date to something that happened in the 12th century with your ancestor and mine. Because King Henry II had a rebellion with his wife and sons. This was called the Battle of Fornham, and it took place back in 1173. The sword has on it letters engraved and filled in with silver inlay. It has animals. It's a very interesting sword, and it's in great shape for something that's been in the ground for almost 1,000 years.
That's incredible.
My blogger spotlight this week shines upon Maureen Taylor. Many of you may know her as the photo detective. And on Maureen's blog, maureentaylor.com/blog, you'll learn all sorts of exciting stories about her detective work in photography. One that's really an interesting one for me, and I actually worked with her on the book, was The Last Muster. And she has a blog post called Looking for the Revolutionary War Generation in Your Own Family Photos. Well, at NEHGS for 172 years, we've had members. Now members can go online at AmericanAncestors.org, and you can become a free guest member of NEHGS. Sign up. Check out free databases every week and ones that we've had that will allow you to find your research in American Ancestors, part of the New England Historic Genealogical Society in Boston. Well, that's all I have for this week. Next week, Fish, I'm going to be at the New England Regional Genealogical Conference in Springfield, Massachusetts. As the 14th annual conference with over 1,000 people expected, this will have all sorts of exciting lecturers like people like Thomas McKenty and Maureen Taylor, and even me. So hopefully I'll see you there and I'll get some interviews and we'll talk live from the floor at the New England Regional Genealogical Conference.
All right, David, thanks so much. Make sure you keep track of your luggage every step of the way.
Take care.
All right, buddy. And coming up next, we're going to talk to Katie Barnes. She's from legacytree.com. She's going to talk about epidemics. Anybody who's done any research for any period of time has run into situations where they watch their ancestors essentially wiped out in just a few days or a few weeks. I know we've got that situation in my family lines, my wife's family lines. She's going to talk about some of the diseases, what were some of the symptoms, what were some of the things our ancestors had to endure, not only for themselves, but watching their loved ones as they suffered through this situation. It's all coming up for you in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. legacytree.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show. It's Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and this segment is brought to you by 23andme.com DNA. And I'm very happy to be talking to my friend Katie Barnes from legacytree.com. And Katie has recently written a blog about epidemics. And this is something we've never even touched on the show, other than maybe last week when David Allen Lambert was on. And we were talking about a couple in England that died 4 minutes apart and 3 miles away. They'd been married for over 70 years, and they were each in separate senior facilities. One died at like 6:43 in the morning, and then the other died at like 6:47 in the morning. And David had mentioned, we sometimes see families where individuals died close together, but usually it was because of an epidemic going through the town. And Katie, your research on this is really quite interesting. What got you going on it?
So it all started in research in my own family tree. You might call me morbid. It's been done. But I find death and how it affected our ancestors to be very interesting, especially considering the differences between our medical system and our access to healthcare today versus in earlier centuries.
Sure.
And it can be quite tragic to learn about, but, it's just one more of those pieces of meat, for lack of a better term, that we can put on our ancestors' family trees, to learn more details about them.
Yeah, I've seen on my wife's line, for instance, where there was a couple where the father and the mother died about 7 or 8 days apart, and then two or three of the children, and then there was one survivor out of the group of them that carried the line on. And it's just devastating, and you look at it and you think, wait a minute, it's not just them at that time. If it's that bad, then that means families all around them, the entire community, and then they've got problems with how to stop the spread and how to bury the people in those circumstances. What are some of the stories you've uncovered?
Well, I have one that matches that almost exactly. And I wrote about this in the blog, but this is also from my own family tree. One of my direct line ancestors was a man named Charles Conyers. He and his wife, Harriet, lived in Wilson County, Tennessee. They had married in the late 1840s. They were a young couple. And Charles, I found on the 1850 mortality schedule, which is a special census made of those who had passed away within the last year. And it was taken at the same time as the federal census between 1850 and 1880. I found Charles on the 1850 mortality schedule saying he had died of cholera, and he was only 24 years old. And his wife, who was only 20, had died sometime within the last year as well. And we don't know exactly her cause of death because she died outside the scope of that mortality schedule.
Right.
And in Tennessee at this time, there weren't death certificates. So we don't know exactly. But I strongly suspect that cholera might have been the same cause of death. And they also left one infant child. One little boy is the only child they'd had in their whole time of marriage. And he survived, was raised by his grandparents, and went on to have 12 kids of his own, thankfully, of which I am a descendant. But yeah, it's just tragic. I can't imagine, that happening, losing both of your parents in one fell swoop pretty much from the same dreaded disease.
Right. Well, cholera is a disease we just don't hear much about these days. What are the symptoms? How does that develop? Do you know?
So cholera is primarily a digestive abdominal issue. It's very unpleasant, diarrhea, throwing up, that kind of thing. And we don't hear about it that much now because our hygiene practices have improved greatly. People didn't know this at the time, but cholera is generally spread through unclean water, for example. And we're a lot better at that sort of thing now. On the blog, I have a photo here of a notice from the New York Board of Health in the 1800s that tried to describe what they thought the causes of cholera were at the time. And they recommended avoiding raw vegetables and unripe fruit and cold water. So they were kind of hitting near to the truth in their cold water recommendation, but what they didn't understand was that the water was dirty.
Yeah.
And that can affect entire communities when everyone is drinking from the same water source that is contaminated.
And, you know, it wasn't just the rural areas either. I mean, the major cities still didn't have plumbing working in the buildings. They'd have outhouses. There was waste being thrown out in the streets. You also had the animals going through the streets. I mean, it had to be not a great place to breathe if you were living in New York City in the 1820s or something like that. And you would see the diseases come through those towns. London, of course, is certainly known for that. People would see that the plague was coming in. They would leave town because they knew that they might not be able to avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, arguably living in a big city could be unhealthier than living rurally. Maybe you have more access to doctors within a certain square mile radius, but at the same time you have those issues with proximity and lack of sanitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine, though, in the outlying areas, maybe people had even less idea about what was going on. You know, that case I told you about at the beginning of the segment about my wife's ancestor was kind of interesting because not only did this one child, a son, survive from that couple, but he then went on and he too died later with his wife, leaving another single child. And that was my wife's great-grandmother. That was up in Michigan. So it was 2 generations that were lost in different plagues. And yet somehow the line continued to find its way.
What was the cause of death on that second generation? Do you know?
No, I never was able to find it. You know, even with the newspaper accounts that are out right now, nothing has come up that has stated what was going on at that time. But we're talking about 1870 or so.
Okay, yeah.
Montville, Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help that, you know, even in bigger areas, the knowledge of germ theory and how exactly disease was incubated and spread was just not had by the average person. And you're right, that lack of education would slow that down even further.
You know, other than child mortality, I would think that this was the biggest risk to early death of anything in the early United States. We had consumption, which is tuberculosis. You had cholera. What else did we have?
Well, we had a smallpox epidemic. We've had 1793 in Philadelphia saw a massive yellow fever outbreak that killed an enormous portion of the city, actually. We've had typhoid. 1918 was the huge Spanish flu that killed. It affected 1 in 4 Americans. And that was kind of brought by the transatlantic ships going back and forth after the ending of World War I.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? All the folks we lost in World War I, and then this brought all the disease back and killed all the people here. I mean, hundreds of thousands of folks at that time. I had a cousin on one line that died of it. And, you know, when you talk about 1 in 4, that means virtually every family was impacted by somebody either fighting it off or dying.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder when that kind of thing's going to happen in our country again, doesn't it?
It does. It's scary to think about. Thankfully, I think that we have a lot of vaccines to prevent many of these diseases, but diseases are very resilient, so you never know what could come up next.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially with influenza.
Katie, what about childbirth back in the 19th century? And we don't hear a lot of people dying in childbirth anymore. I mean, I know it happens, but it's not nearly the rates that we heard even 100 years ago, even in the 1920s. What kind of death rate did we experience in the 19th century in the United States?
Well, the child mortality rate and the maternal mortality rates were extremely high at that time. And one of the things that we don't realize when we talk about that is that it wasn't just the physical act of giving birth, it was the complications of the lack of pre- and postnatal care that accompanied that, and the diseases that could come from the lack of sanitary and hygienic conditions present in childbirth.
You know, it's funny, we often hear about the average lifespan increasing like 30 years since 1900. But really, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have really reduced infant mortality over those years, and that's made a huge difference because those who lived to adulthood often lived a full life, right?
Yes, definitely. And I have a story that kind of illustrates this a little bit. This is also from my family tree. I have a lot of these really sad stories, actually. So my second great-grandmother, Mary Kramer, gave birth in 1873, and she was 23 years old, and that was her third child. And she ended up being diagnosed with pyemia, which is a form of staph-borne septicemia that ended up killing her within 3 weeks of giving birth to her third child. This condition was caused by a lack of sanitary, healthy conditions present during labor, which is probably brought in by the midwife. No washing hands, no sterile implements used during the labor, and it's easy to develop infections, and I think that's what caused a lot of the deaths of the mothers. And like I said, she was 23 years old. Thankfully, her baby survived, but that's not always the case either, for frequently the same reasons.
So you're thinking the midwives had a lot to do with this?
Yes, the midwives, maybe the fathers around, just the conditions of the home in which the family was living. Yeah, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah, it could come from anywhere. I had a great-grandmother who was a midwife, and I have her book, her birthing book, with the names of all the children she delivered from the 1890s to the early 1900s. And
wow.
It was her son's first wife giving birth to their seventh child in 1921, and a few weeks later, the mother died. And the son survived. But while I've never seen anything that suggested anything else, I think it had to do with complications from childbirth.
Yes, definitely. And with the lack of prenatal care, they're not going to predict some of the things that may have been a normal problem anyway. You think of ectopic pregnancies or preeclampsia, and those kind of things weren't diagnosed, just outside of the normal infections that could occur afterwards. So just the lack of medical knowledge in general made it very dangerous, both for mothers and their babies.
I'll tell you, I think you've made everybody appreciate how much better we have it today than we did even 2 generations ago. And what a difference a century makes, right?
Definitely. Thank goodness.
She's Katie Barnes. She's with LegacyTree.com talking about epidemics and things that took our ancestors a little bit too early. Thanks so much for coming on, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
And coming up next, I'm going to be talking to Jean McGuire. She is the librarian at the New England Historic Genealogical Society. We're going to talk about the Catholic Record Project that they're doing, digitizing and indexing millions of names related to your Catholic ancestors going back to the 18th century. Where are they at now? How can you get access to them? We'll find out coming up in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Hovorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks. Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. This segment is brought to you by LegacyTree.com. And I love our partnership with the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. They've got so much going on in the New England area, which is such a gateway for so many Americans. And on the line with me right now is the Library Director for NEHGS, Jean McGuire. How are you, Jean? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me, Scott, and hello to all your listeners out there.
Well, you know, David has just been really excited about what's been going on with your Catholic digitizing project that's going on there. And it's of such a massive scale and can affect so many people from across the country. I thought now that it's been, 4 months already, we might want to revisit this and talk about what you're doing there and what kind of records can be found. Now, last I recall, you had just started, I think, in December with one parish. What was it?
So Holy Cross was the first parish that we had online. That was the first parish established in the Archdiocese back in the late 1700s. And we also put up early on the Holy Trinity Church of Boston, which was also referred to as the German Church,
right,
and Immaculate Conception. So those three parishes.
And those were within the greater Boston area, or actually in Boston, right?
That's correct.
And how many names and entries did you wind up with in that first batch?
Oh, boy. Well, the indexing is still ongoing with those. So what is online are the images for those parishes and many others now. And what we do is as soon as we complete imaging a parish, that parish goes online for people to browse through the images. And at the same time, we're doing the indexing at NEHGS. And once the indexing is complete, then the collections will be searchable on the website. So first people will see the images, and then later we'll announce when the collection becomes searchable, and people can then go and search for names. But we anticipate that by the end of it, there'll be about 10 million names coming out of these records.
Well, that's incredible. And, you know, Family Search does the same thing with many of their projects. They'll put the images up, and over time, the indexing will get caught up with that. I think really all of the companies do that as well.
Yes, I think it's great that Family Search does that. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's a great service. And I've done this myself where I've just gone in and I know that I have people in certain areas, and even though it's not indexed, I'll just search the pages in the era that I believe that they should be there. And there's so much to be found. Now, this project is going to cover a lot more than just Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes. So officially the parishes that it covers are all in eastern Massachusetts. So all the way up to the northern border and down as far as south as Plymouth and Middleborough, and then as far west as places like Marlborough. But the records that are in there actually go beyond Massachusetts because the priests in the early years of the Archdiocese had to travel all around what is New England now and carry out sacraments in those areas because parishes didn't exist. So they would even go up to eastern Canada, up to New Brunswick. They would go to New Hampshire and Maine, down to Rhode Island. So it's been interesting as we image the records to see all the places that the priests would travel to carry out the sacraments for the Catholics who were living all around the region.
That's incredible. What's the earliest year in these records?
The earliest year is 1789.
Okay, so just right after the founding of the country.
Yes, it's true.
154 parishes, 84 towns. Now you're moving up into New England and Canada. Talk about some of the records that are in there. What are Catholic records showing us, and relationships and sacramental rites?
Yes. Well, one of the great things about church records, as many people know, is that you get information beyond just the person or persons who are actually receiving the sacrament, whether it's marriage or baptism or whatever. You are getting information on parents, you're getting information on sponsors and witnesses, and, of course, even the priest's name. So this is particularly useful, and I think it's particularly useful when you're doing Irish research because you can combine names of multiple people who are in records. If you are looking for some common surnames, you could combine one person's first name and last name with another person's because we're indexing all the witnesses and sponsors, godparents.
Wow. That's huge. And that's not often done.
No, it's not, unfortunately. And it really is helpful, I think, for genealogical researchers as they're going about trying to find these elusive people.
How many different records of an individual might be made throughout the course of a Catholic ancestor's life, would you say?
Sure. So there would be a baptism, a first communion, a confirmation, a marriage, and possibly a burial or death record. And then there can be additional things, like if there was a sick call made to the person, or if that person became a priest, there would be a holy order record. So it can vary, but there should be at least about 4 throughout the course of a person's life.
And possibly as many as 8 or so.
Yeah, right.
That's incredible. And so we're looking at 10 million names over what period of time? When do you think the entire project will be done? Not only the images, but the indexing.
So it will take us a few years to complete it with both imaging and indexing. So people should stay tuned throughout. We have a database news update that people can get. So, as soon as something goes online, we announce it to people through the database news alert. And so everyone should stay tuned. There's progress being made all the time. And there's a website people can go to that's called catholicrecords.americanancestors.org, and that will give them information all about the project and also about the history of the Archdiocese. There's a nice map there where people can see the development of the parishes over the course of time and see when particular parishes formed, so maybe they know the area where their ancestor was. They could look on that map. And through there, they can also get access to the collection, the digital collections.
And you know what really brought this home to me, and I don't have a lot of Catholic ancestors, I have a couple, and they're very difficult to find usually, the Catholic records, and I don't know why that has been for most of the country. Certainly not a lot of it online, but you're making a huge dent in that. But I got an email from a listener in the Midwest who had no idea that his ancestor had been in one of these parishes in the Boston area. So when your very first stuff came out, they found their ancestors there, which gave them connections and information they had been looking for years and years, and they were thrilled by it. And that's just because they heard Extreme Genes and heard David Allen Lambert talking about it.
Yes, it's wonderful to hear stories like that. I mean, you're right that Catholic records have not been available online really very much over recent years. And, of course, the records of Ireland went online, which was wonderful. And then Archdiocese of Boston was the first archdiocese to do such a large collection of records here in the U.S. And now, quickly following that, are other archdioceses, Philadelphia, New York, Baltimore, who are working with Find My Past. So I think maybe we're seeing a new era in the online availability of Catholic Church records.
Well, I think you're right. It seems to be just a difference in perspective by the Catholic Church itself.
Yes, I think that they recognize that people need access to the records, and they want to make that possible. And also, a lot of these records are in poor condition, and they want to reduce handling of those printed volumes.
Well, thank you so much, Jean. She's Jean McGuire. She's the librarian at New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. The Catholic Project is underway there. You can find out all about it at AmericanAncestors.org online. You need a membership for that, Jean?
No, you don't. The images are free to use. You get a guest registration, which is a very quick, simple process, and then you have free access to them.
All right. Keep an eye on David for us, will you? I know he's nothing but trouble.
That's a lot to keep an eye on there.
I know it. All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Jean. Congratulations on the project. It's an important one. It's going to affect a lot of people, and we'll be looking forward to catching up with you in the future.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
And coming up next, our resident geek, our preservation authority, Tom Perry from TMCplace.com. He is buying new toys from the CES show in Las Vegas. He's going to tell you what they're all about and why you might want them. Coming up next on Extreme Genes.
You know, everybody needs a place of their own to plant their family tree, preferably one that no one else can mess with and only you can control. That perfect place is Roots Magic. Roots Magic has been a family history standard for years, and now Roots Magic 7 is on the market. It's an award-winning genealogical software program which makes researching, organizing, and sharing your family history easy. You can start from scratch or import data from other software, or even Family Search. Roots Magic also automatically finds finds records relating to your ancestors from MyHeritage, Family Search, and soon Ancestry and Find My Past. You can use it to create beautiful charts, reports, and books. And have you ever thought about making your own family history website? Roots Magic can make that happen too. And of course, there are free videos, guides, and technical support to help you along. Isn't it about time you planted your family tree? Whether you're a beginning genie or experienced professional, Roots Magic is the perfect tool for you.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
Well, Genies, my personal family history researcher who sends me new information day and night has sent me some incredible new records and newspaper stories lately. Hi, it's Fisher, and the name of that researcher, by the way, is myheritage.com. It's the hardest working service in genealogy, looking for records of your family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, even while you're sleeping. How does it work? MyHeritage uses hundreds of algorithms to match your ancestors to over 5 billion records from around the world, and with 97% accuracy. That means no more wasting time figuring out whether or not a match really is a match. I hear from listeners all the time who are shocked with how much information is accurately found and then passed along. And now MyHeritage will translate your ancestors' names into English or any other language you like from foreign records. In fact, it works with over 40 languages. No one else does this. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned researcher, you need myheritage.com. It is time to talk preservation on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and this segment is brought to you by FamilySearch.org. Tom Perry is here from TMCPlace.com. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Super duper.
Now, I see you all excited again, and you're geeking out over some new toys. Now, where did you run into these?
These were things at CES, which we talked about a few weeks ago, but we didn't have time to get into all these other new toys. One of my favorite ones is called a Beast Grip.
A Beast Grip. Now, just for explanation for people who are not familiar, CES is the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, which took place a couple of months ago.
Right.
And the follow-up, though, is just absolutely incredible because there's so much to process.
Oh, we could spend an entire year talking about cool stuff, but I've kind of cherry-picked some stuff that I think is cool that, I'm going to buy myself. And this one is really, really great because being a professional photographer, I've always been tied between my Nikon and my iPhone. When do I use this? When do I need to do this? Sometimes it's really tough. And then these guys from Beast Grip come out with this really cool thing. It kind of looks like a cradle that you put your iPhone in. Then once your iPhone's in it, it works great because it helps to stabilize your picture. You take better pictures.
Sure.
But then you can either buy their lenses that are like wide-angle lenses or zoom lenses, or you can actually buy an adapter lens. So like if you have the Canon bayonet mount lenses, you can put those things on it. And the thing that this does, if anybody ever shot pictures with an iPhone and with a professional camera, you're not able to make the background, blurry. So if you're taking a picture of Aunt Martha in front of a building and there's a big stop sign, it's going to look like it's growing out of her head.
Right.
Because you can't rack that out, make it look like it's out of focus. Well, with this system, you can. And it's just amazing if you're really tight on something, like you're shooting something in a cemetery and it's against a big building or something, you can't get close to it, use a wide-angle lens. It just gives you all kinds of opportunities. And so once you get your cradle, then you put your iPhone in it. And the thing is, it's not very expensive. You can get the basic cradle for only $140 retail.
Okay.
And they're always running sales.
And that includes the lenses?
No, that's the basic cradle, because some people, that's all they want. It's just a cradle to help them, because it's easier to hold, and you can go and take a picture, and it's not like, oh no, I got my finger kind of in front of the lens, so with this one, it's not going to happen. You actually have a grip you can hold on to. It's very light, and it helps you in the stability too. Plus, if you want to take a selfie or something with your timer that you have on your phone, you can set it on like a concrete barrier or something, and then set your timer, go stand in front of it, because it'll hold your telephone up, so it'll look really, really great. But the thing is, these lenses are getting so amazing on these iPhones and some of the new Androids that it's like, wow, do I even need to use my Nikon anymore? Well, for specific things, you do, but these things are so light, so easy to carry around. It's easy to keep it in your pocket. It's just crazy.
You know, for an accessory to a cell phone, $140 to me sounds really expensive. But when you put it in comparison to, say, a Nikon, it sounds like, wow, what a great way to maximize your cell phone, much less expensive than a professional setup with a camera.
Right, and it's so portable, and it gives you all the options you would have with your normal lens to make adjustments and things like that. But the nice thing is it's so portable, and even if you're not a professional photographer or ever had any real, what they call SLR type experience, which stands for single lens reflex, that's where when you're looking through the lens, what you see is actually what the lens is seeing. It's not like the old cameras where you look through this little square and then you get it back and you go, oh, I don't have everything that I wanted to see. Or when you're looking through a single lens reflex camera or an SLR, what you're seeing is exactly what you're going to get. So when you adjust, you can see, oh, okay, the stop sign or the pole's out of focus. Like I'm taking this big, beautiful picture of my great-great-grandfather's old ranch, but there's these stupid telephone poles in the background, where this gives you the ability to soften them out or just make them almost totally go away by focusing.
All right, so where do people get these?
You can go to our Twitter account, and I'll actually have a link on there. So you can just go to @AskTomP. There'll be a link there. You can see pictures of it, and it is just so totally cool.
Boy, that's awesome. All right, what do we have coming up next?
We're going to talk about going solar.
Solar.
Going
solar. All right.
We're using the sun.
In 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities, and it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's Top 10 Tips for Beginning Genealogists from the Chief Genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. You know, it's been a couple of months now since the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. And here's Tom Perry, our preservation authority here on Extreme Genes, still geeking out over some of the new toys that are out there. Hi, it's Fisher, and this is America's Family History Show. This segment is brought to you by myheritage.com. And Tom, you were talking just before the break about going solar. Now, what does that mean in context of a cell phone camera?
You know, it's great because a lot of times when you're out doing genealogy, you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Cemeteries, churches, old homes.
Oh, exactly. And sometimes if you're in another country and you don't have the right adapters, what are you going to do? Well, there's a place called SoulPad Mobile that makes carry-along type things about the size of an iMac, so it's not that big. And it's solar. You aim it towards the sun, you plug your phone in. It's actually building up power. Then come and plug your phone in, and it'll charge it almost instantly.
So we're talking about like a little solar panel like you see on roofs?
Right. In fact, there's actually two different kinds we're going to talk about. The one that's a SoulPad is, like I say, it's about the size of a laptop. It's
okay.
A little bit larger. It has a little stand on it. It has both the 110 and the 220 type power on it. So any place in the world, you can take it with you. And so if you're someplace where there's no power and you're saying, oh, my phone's running down, I'm trying to get all these pictures in this cemetery, or I'm at a conference and I can't run over to the wall and plug my phone in or whatever, you can actually do battery backups with these too, so they'll hold the power.
Wow.
And then you plug your device, whether you have a computer or an iPad or a phone or whatever, you can just plug it into that. You can leave it in your car and aim it at the sun so it's secured in your car, but yet it's still getting the sun by sitting, on your window.
That's incredible. Now, it'll power a phone, but how much power will it give you?
I don't have the exact time to go over the specs right now, but if you go to our Twitter page, I'll have another link on that, and then you can go check out their site, see all the different options they have. They have the big ones, they have the small ones, they have all different kinds of devices that you can use to charge your iPhone or whatever it is that you have, and you can buy different power amounts. So if you just need something little because all you use is an iPhone or an iPad, that's fine. If you want to be able to run your computer out in the middle of nowhere, like you're doing your family history right there in the middle of a cemetery, and of course there's not any AC or DC there, so you just plug in the back of your solar panel, and as the sun moves, just move it around.
That's
and aim at the sun.
incredible.
Oh, it is. It's just absolutely amazing how technology's come out.
And the cost?
I believe the preliminary price is like $500 for the really nice big ones, but they'll have smaller ones that do other things that will cost a whole lot less. Now, the other one, this uses solar also, but you can roll them up.
Huh?
You just roll them up and put them in your purse, your backpack. They're totally flexible. You're not going to set something on it and break it. There's no glass or anything like on the other ones. It's totally portable. And you can get a generator that you plug it to. So when you're away from it, it's charging the generator. They'll even power a refrigerator if you want to take snacks with you.
Wow. Out in the middle of nowhere in Europe. That would be incredible.
Exactly. In fact, they make those Coleman coolers that are actually, you plug it in your cigarette lighter or whatever to stay cool. Take that and have a picnic, right there with great-great-great-great-grandfather right on his grave.
Yeah. So how much is that little thing, the roll-up solar panel?
They start out at a couple $100 and go up depending on all the options. Some people want just the basic solar panels. They have ones that are 6 feet tall. They have the little teeny ones that just roll up. But anytime you've run into a situation where your phone's died on you, if you have one of these little solar panels rolled up in your glove compartment or anything, it's like, oh, big deal. Set it on your dashboard, plug your phone in, charge you back up.
All right. If you have a question for our Preservation Authority, Tom Perry, of course, you can always email him at asktom@tmcplace.com, or you can ask the question on his Twitter page, which is @AskTomP. Thanks so much, Tom. Good stuff.
Great to be here. My pleasure.
Hey, that is a wrap for this week's show. Thanks so much for joining us. If you missed any part of it or want to hear a part of it again, or, of course, share it with a friend, you can download our free app for the podcast, or you can go to iTunes, iHeartRadio, or ExtremeGenes.com and listen to the podcast. Hey, don't forget also to go to ExtremeGenes.com and get yourself signed up for our free weekly Genie newsletter. All kinds of tips and stories there for you to enjoy. Talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.